U.S. stocks tanked on Friday as the major indices failed to build on Thursday's rally, and all finished with losing weeks. However, there are signs of economic resilience, yet the central bank meets next week, and there's a 97% chance that the Fed committee holds interest rates at current levels. In other news, it looks increasingly likely that the U.S. government is headed for a shutdown on October 1st. To avert this shutdown, Congress will have to pass 12 separate bills to fund federal agencies by the end of fiscal year on September 30th. I know most people don't want a government shutdown, but to me, a shutdown is the only time I can trust the government isn't wasting our tax money. And so let's take a quick look at the 2-year weekly chart on the spiders, the SPY, and the close on Friday was 443.37. Now I've pre-drawn these channel lines, the upper channel line moving through here like this, and the lower channel line moving through under here. Now, looking at the top channel line, we got to this point here. The market rolled over, came back down near the bottom channel line. We had a reflection on up, got about halfway before we sort of rolled over. So this little rollover is causing another small contraction. I'm going to bet that we're going to come down to this lower channel line, which moves through more or less like that. I think we're going to hit that before we perhaps rebound back on up. I think that's the greatest probability at this time. And moving down here, volume looks just fine, not going to tell us too much. But here in the MAC, you can see the rollover that occurred at this point here, and the fast line came down and just barely through the slow line, moved down, had a reflection back up, but got bounced or rejected by that slow line back down here again. So we do have strength. We're up at this 10 level, well above that 0 line, so there is some strength, but I think we're going to have this move to the downside here for the next week or so, maybe a little bit longer, as we do have some headwinds. First of all, the auto workers that are striking, and then of course we have the Fed meeting, and then perhaps the government shutdown that we talked about. Here into the histogram, you can see that this move down here is relatively shallow so far, so I think that there's a reasonable probability that we do bounce off of that lower channel line and head up, say, in a week or two. It might take a little bit longer, but that's what I think the probability is. In the meantime, the price rate of change shows that we sawtoothed our way down here, heading on down. So I think I'm going to be looking for a bottoming and basing in this area here around the 0 line. Moving into the relative strength index, the RSI, we're at a moderate 53.99, and it looks to be pretty much the same thing. Perhaps another bottoming and basing here near that 50 or midline. Going all the way back here, you can see that we're set up for a decent upward trend all the way through here. So I don't imagine we're going to go too far below that line, and hopefully bottom and base here with an upward move in a few weeks or so. Here into stochastics, it looks like the acceleration is a little bit on the downside with the fast line moving here, but again, we have strength. We're above that mid or 50 line, so let's look for another bottoming and basing in this area here. But I think that this longer term trend line from there to here is more or less intact. Even though we do go down and below this line, I don't think it's significant, but it is perhaps a bit of a yellow caution flag, so keep your eyes out on that. Here into Williams, again, the trend line is still moving on up. We have this double bottom at this point. I think that the move down to here perhaps will reflect back on up in the near future, at least. That's my hope, and at least I think that's the probability. Move back up here into the price chart, and one last look at the price chart. There we are. those are my probabilities, at least in my mind, but they may change over the weekend into next week. I kind of doubt it, but we'll have to wait, say, a week or two. I'm not going to be changing anything in the short term. I think that this trend line is going to hold. I think that's the probability. So for today, that's ChewDog Charts. Thank you.